Welcome to Spotlight on St. John's. I'm your host, Brian Brown. St. John's University is a unique Catholic and Vincentian institution of higher education, and St. John's is on a mission to ensure student success. Today I had the chance to sit down with Mike Cragg, Director of Athletics at St. John's University. Mike and athletic directors like him play an important leadership role in higher education and in the development of student athletes both on and off the playing field. Let's watch. So Mike Cragg, St. John's University Athletic Director, thank you for stepping into the spotlight.
Yeah, that's great to be here. Thanks for coming to my office.
It's been a little over a year since you first arrived on campus, a high-profile transfer from Duke. How's it been so far?
It's been fantastic. But yeah, we spent 31 years at Duke University in North Carolina, raised our kids there, and so it's been a big change, big transition, but we've loved it. The people have been tremendous right from the get-go here at St. John's and Queens and all of New York, but very well received, and we feel very welcomed, and that's what the school's about. And so we felt very comfortable right at the start. We're with good people.
Now, 30 years in one place and then making a career change, making a move. What was the thought process there? Normally it doesn't happen.
Yeah, some people say we're swimming upstream, but moving from North Carolina to New York. But you know, for us, it was like everybody, it's a matter of timing. And so where we were in our personal lives, raising our children, and where we were professionally at Duke, I had a number of different roles, as you can imagine, over 30 years, and left there as the deputy athletic director and COO. And you know, my career goal was to always be an athletic director. Back when I was a student at the University of Washington, I admired and studied what the athletic director, Mike Lude, was doing there. And as I'm learning the business and doing all that, it just became something that I always wanted to do. And then, like everything else, I mean, it's about timing and finding the right fit. And so as we interviewed at other schools and kind of got our feet wet in that process, it was very clear right from the start that St. John's was a good fit, or it felt like a good fit. It's been confirmed it's a good fit for us, and hopefully for the school as well. And you know, I think that's the most important thing. And so we've treated it as our big adventure. We're in our mid-50s, and we love New York. We've loved it always as visitors, and now living in Queens, we love it even more. And it's fun for our friends now to come here. So our personal life couldn't be better. Right. Our professional life, you know, we're at a place we want to be, and a job we aspired to be in, and so it's pretty cool.
Excellent. I want to come back to the Queens angle in a moment, but
sure.
So you always kind of aspired to be an athletic director. Did you play sports as a youth? I mean, did you want to be an athlete for a while, like we all kind of do?
We all want to be athletes.
Right, right.
I grew up playing in a little town of Yakima, Washington, which is agriculture-based in eastern part of the state. Right. So high desert, big baseball town. I grew up playing baseball, basketball, football. And back in those days, you know, you played everything. There was no travel teams. There was none of that. And in fact, I played soccer, and there wasn't even a high school soccer team. We played on a city league team. So did all those things, but then it was pretty clear that that wasn't going to be the path of success.
Did you have a favorite sport as a child?
I would say probably basketball. Okay. Probably played more basketball than anything else. Okay. I loved baseball, played that the most, and then I got hit by a pitch or a foul ball, and that kind of ruined any confidence stepping up to the plate again. Okay. But again, we're talking middle school and high school here. Right. But my dad was a professor at the junior college there, community college, in Yakima, and he was a volunteer assistant football coach. And so at an early age, I traveled with the football team at Yakima Valley College and kept stats. And would keep stats on the sidelines in a big book and all that, and then I would call the newspaper after the game, the Yakima Herald-Republic, which I was a paper boy too. But
how old were you at this time?
It was middle school, so I'm going to guess something like 14, 15, maybe a little younger. Right. And I'd call the Herald and the sports desk and say, "Here's the results of the YVC football game," and here are the stats and a little bit of it. And they got to know me So little did I know that's actually what a sports information director
Right,
does, and
right.
people actually get paid to do this. And so I did that all growing up, and then not really much with the high school team, all with the junior college, kept
Okay.
stats for the basketball team there, and kind of the same thing. So I got to know the reporters and
Sure.
sports desk, and then the football coach at Yakima wrote a letter. There was no emails back then. Wrote a letter to the head football coach at Washington, Don James, Hall of Famer, and to, gave me the chance he forwarded the letter to the SID, and they called me when I was still in high school and said, would you be interested in working here, working stats and in our sports information office? Again, I had no idea what that meant, but I actually, it's a quarter system school, so I actually worked for a month and a half before ever going to my first class at Washington.
Wow.
And
So you've
worked all
always
4
been
years.
involved in sports.
I've always been involved in sports,
Look at
so
that.
the business side of it.
Okay.
And like I said, little did I know people get paid to do what they love doing.
Right.
So I feel fortunate every day, and I've never felt, Duke or here, that I have a job. I mean, I have a lot of responsibilities,
Sure.
but I love what I do. So, anybody that can find that in their life and find their passion, I feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to have done that.
So true. Now, first-time athletic director.
Yes.
What have you learned on the job?
Everything.
Because that role has evolved tremendously over the years, and it continues to evolve.
Correct. The enterprise of intercollegiate sports is a big business, and but the core of it is still about the students, the student athletes, and our care for them. And so I think in my role as an athletic director that you have a bigger influence and opportunity to be there for the student athletes. I see myself in the role of being the coach to our coaches, and then trying to build a culture of excellence and innovation and hard work among our administrators and our athletic department. And so I inherited a great team of people, a lot of people that have been here a long time, and then really just trying to reorganize, organize, hopefully my passions and interests go through and permeate. And my experiences at Duke, I reflect on them every day. I mean, that's where I learned the business.
Right.
And so having great mentors like Kevin White, the athletic director there for the last 12 years, Coach K, who I've worked with for the last 30 years. I think about that virtually every day.
Right.
And, put myself in their places as leaders at Duke, now being the leader here. How does that apply? And, I think like anything else, we just try our best.
Right.
And so you learn along the way, and if you're not learning, then you're probably not working. And so I'm constantly learning, and I love that.
Right. Now, the business has evolved over the years.
Yeah.
Particularly the role of an athletic director has evolved. I mean, to your point, it's not just kind of checking in and managing coaches. It's fundraising. It's dealing with student athletes. It's looking at capital improvements. Could you talk, I guess, about what are your goals?
Yeah.
Maybe a 5-year plan if you have one.
Sure. Well, in fact, we're putting together a very formal plan. Since we've come here, our senior deputy AD, Kathy Mia, and I put in charge of our strategic plan. And so we had a committee of administrators, coaches, outside donors to help us kind of look at what's the future of athletics here and be able to articulate that.
Right.
We're in the process of finishing that up, and we'll be in front of our administration and trustees soon. And so that's an articulation of what it means, to your point, and what it means. It's a challenging environment, and with a lot of as we strive to be, and so the goal is to be a competitive program in the Big East across all of our 17 sports.
Right.
We love the Big East. We're at a great place that we're in very like-minded schools. And so, the hierarchy, if you will, of college athletics is very football focused at those top 6,500 schools,
right.
Power 5, if you will. I love where the Big East is that we aren't in that game, but we are in the game of big-time college athletics, particularly in men's basketball.
Right.
And so how do we then make the best advantage of that? Every school's looking for its own advantages, if you will. And then how are we competitive? What does it mean to be competitive? And then how does that translate to helping all of our sports? And so we'll have a really good articulation of that. At the same time, we're really far behind in facilities in that competitive environment. And so again, it's easy to say that, but then we've had a committee of that where I've had my deputy AD, John Diffley, in charge of that, and be able to really do peer-to-peer comparisons. Again, a committee of coaches, administrators, donors, to be able to articulate what this should look like. And again, in the frame of we intend to be a competitive Big East program,
right.
And so we're not going to be Clemson, and all of that, but we are going to be the best we can be, how it fits at this school, to be competitive with the Villanovas, the Georgetowns, and all that. That's my job, to be able to articulate and communicate to our university what we should look like.
Right.
And so we have a lot of work to do, and but we're not going to be shy about that.
Right.
And I think, I've said this from the day I was hired, since I was interviewed, that all these same things. And so it's not going to come to any surprise when we say this is what it means to invest in athletics.
Right.
And it is an investment.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, I went through the same exercise at Duke, a small private school competing with very big football schools.
Right.
And so how do you do it the most impactful way that's right for Duke, in this case right for St. John's, but being competitive, but not saying, hey, just because they have it, we have to have it.
Right.
That's not a strategic plan. That's simply keeping up with the Joneses, and that doesn't fit at St. John's.
Now, we do have here a great resource in Madison Square Garden.
We do.
Could you speak to that as a resource and,
Yeah.
and how you see it? I know you do, and we are playing
Yeah.
more games this season
Correct.
at the Garden,
Yeah.
men's basketball.
No, it's a game changer for us. I mean, that's what separates us. Like I said, everybody's looking for their advantages. In the sport of men's basketball, Madison Square Garden, New York City, we have something that everybody wants. And we have the day-to-day realities and trying to make that better here in Carnesecca in our practice facility and building that infrastructure. But in Madison Square Garden, we have a unique and special place.
Right. Historic location.
It's historic, and it's literally the dream of every kid growing up is to play in Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And so that's our home. And so I think we have to do a better job, and we're doing that, of making it clear that that's our home. When you
Right.
think of Madison Square Garden, you think of St. John's.
Right.
I don't think that's necessarily what it's been of recent. It's been college basketball. Obviously, it's always going to be a pro arena.
Right.
But a lot of big college basketball games. The Champions Classic was just there.
Right.
But we need to get to the point where they think, hey, this is St. John's court. I jokingly tell our Big East Conference peers and administrators that I know we've achieved something when they start thinking about St. John's has too big of an advantage in the Big East tournament because it's on their home court.
Okay.
And it is our home court.
It is.
And so that's our goal, is to get to that point where they start thinking, wow, why are we playing on St. John's home court every year?
Right.
That's not what everybody thinks of the Big East right now.
Right.
And so that's a big challenge. It's a lofty ambition.
Right.
But we're all in a competitive business, and that will mean really good things for St. John's if we start having that mindset changed.
Absolutely. Now, here at St. John's, men's basketball is a big program, a historic program,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes that's what people think of first when
Mm-hmm.
they hear St. John's.
Mm-hmm.
But there are 16 other sports.
Correct, yeah.
And many are successful and
Yes.
in their own way and in their own competition. Could you speak to, I guess, St. John's athletics writ large?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have many programs that have actually had more success on a national level. I mean, that's part of the storytelling that we're trying to articulate better.
Right.
We've won a fencing national championship. We've won a men's soccer national championship.
Right.
I don't think in the greater large that people think of that.
Right. You have track and field regularly sending people to the Olympics for
Correct.
a host of different countries.
Correct. And, like I said, our fencing program is one of the top in the entire country.
Right.
A coach, to your point, Olympic level coach.
Right.
Women's basketball has a great tradition of postseason play. The Big East is competitive with
Right.
UConn coming in.
Right.
We intend to be competitive as we can be at the top levels of every sport.
Yeah.
And women's basketball is another one that we need to invest in.
Yeah.
Women's soccer, a great history. Volleyball having a great season.
Baseball as well.
You know, baseball, I haven't even mentioned, with
Yeah.
World Series and regionals.
Right.
I mean, those are nationally competitive, and that was kind of my point, is that we need to give the tools to our coaches and our student athletes that we expect to compete at that level, and compete with our peers that their experiences are similar based at St. John's, in New York.
Right.
And so I believe as we invest in them, that we'll have even better results. And we clearly have great coaches, great people. We wouldn't have this success without that. That's
Right.
always the core.
And I was thinking about that recently. Some of the big successful programs that we have here have longtime coaches, whether
Correct.
it's Coach Blankmeyer, Coach Hurt, Coach Mazer, the fencing,
JoJo, Yuri.
Wynn,
Yeah, no,
So
go
is there
across the board.
something to that having that kind of stability in coaching, that longevity
Yeah.
in coaching that lends
Yeah.
itself to success?
Well, I mean, I think it's true of the university. I mean, we have a lot of people that have been here a long time and have great pride and love.
Right.
And so they've found a home. I
Right.
mean, I think any successful program has that. We had that at Duke. If you look through, I mean, coaches, administrators have been there a long time.
Right.
We have that here. So we have a great core to build from.
Right.
I admire all of the amazing success they've had with relatively little investment in
Yeah.
the facilities and into that experience. That's the part that we're trying to change. I think it's just going to get better and better from there. So to your original point, we have a lot of success across the board to celebrate,
Right.
and individually and team. And so us being able to tell that and expand on that is exciting.
Now, something both you and I have been working on is dealing with some of the changes or impending changes of NCAA, the term, what defines an amateur, some
Right.
of the legislative stuff that we're seeing being introduced or discussed. Could
Yeah.
you speak to the idea of compensation for college athletes, or their
Yeah.
image, their likeness, endorsements?
Yeah, well, it is a changing and evolving world, amateur sports and how that's defined. And it's been changing and evolving. This is getting a lot of headlines. The concept is right, in my opinion, and I believe at most administrator levels that student athletes, students should be able to use, in this case, name and likeness to their economic advantage. Now we're talking about 1 or 2%. I mean, and to get real about this, but how that's done, I've not seen an actual plan that
Right.
would work, in my opinion. But the concept, very much in favor of. Really, I think the NCAA as a whole, we have not done a great job of telling the story. I don't think that people realize the things we can do for student athletes today across the board. Whether it's basically unlimited meals, they do have a cost of attendance check that they receive, every quarter, semester in our case.
Right.
That they do have mechanisms to basically reward their participation, and as a part of their scholarship. And so there is actually a huge budget given for every school now that has grown. Every school, food, like I said, cost of attendance, nutrition, mental health, the way we travel, all of that is a big change over the last 10 years.
Right.
So it has been an evolving thing.
Right.
I say why I don't think it's been told real well is because if you were to read headlines and social media, you think that we have an exploited class of youth 18 to 20 years old that are
Right.
forced to go to college.
Right.
We haven't even talked about the benefits of an education,
Right, yes.
and no bills at the end. I mean, I'm a parent of two. I still have bills.
Sure.
And so there are great benefits to having a scholarship at a high Division I level program across the board in every sport. And so that doesn't mean we should just put our heads in the sand and say no more.
Right.
But it's not as if there is none right now. And so I think that telling that story along with what we're talking about, how to find the right answers for that 5% of the very elite athletes.
There's real disparities between the big football schools and then the smaller schools, the Division I schools versus Division II, III. So
There is.
to your point, there's really got to be a well thought out plan that's going to kind of apply to everybody who's part of the NCAA.
And at least every division. I mean, so we're Division I level playing.
Right.
So in the world of Division I, we're in the same boat as Clemson's and everything.
Right.
But you're exactly right. And so the disparity is growing, by the way, every year.
Right.
You know, the TV contracts, and I think that's part of the perception again of this billion-dollar contracts and industry, and it is.
Right.
But the part that's left off is that then translates into paying for this entire enterprise. You know, whether it's the softball team traveling to California, or the scholarships required for a tennis team, or whatever.
Right.
There's no revenue being generated from there, and that's fine. That's college athletics.
Right.
But and so, how you balance all of that, again, I don't think that story's been told, because
Right.
it's real easy to say, oh, they got billions of dollars.
Right.
Well, I welcome anybody to come look at our books, and they're going to see we're falling far, far short of that
Right.
perception,
Right.
but trying to provide the best opportunity for all of our student athletes.
Now, you use the term student athletes, and they are students first. And another great story to tell here at St. John's is the academic success
Right.
of many of our student athletes and teams. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, we had 7 teams this past year with a perfect APR, which is graduation rate.
Right.
We have the top
And
GPA.
that's not easy. There's student athletes, there's training,
Yeah.
there's travel, they're carrying a course load to do that.
That's right.
There's
No,
small
it's a
feat.
huge commitment. I
Right.
mean, and again, that gets back to with that huge commitment, how are they rewarded for
Right.
it? And but no, it's a huge commitment. The time and management is a skill that I think translates to the rest of their lives.
Right.
So there's value, obviously, that they're competitive, they want to win. But what I love is the culture here is they want to be competitive and win in the classroom too.
Right.
They want to win and be competitive in the community as well. And so being involved in Queens, Long Island, and helping others
Right.
less fortunate,
Right.
I mean, that's a part of St. John's.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of pride in that as an athletic department. Our kids are visible and out there.
Right.
In the classroom, visible and out there. That's just part of being the fabric and responsibility of student athletes are, as you said, students first. They come with a little more high profile. They may be wearing some nice clothes in class with Nike swoosh on them.
Right.
And so they stand out maybe a little bit. But at the end of the day, they have a responsibility to be peer-to-peer in the classroom, participating, getting their education. And we have a great support mechanism to ensure that. But we also have great self-driven student athletes that are here for a purpose and a reason. And
And at the
bigger
end of the
picture.
day, most college athletes don't go on to the next level.
99% do not go on to the next level. That is correct.
Right.
Most do not.
So getting that degree and getting that career, which is a byproduct of being a student
Right.
athlete,
Right.
is really a great takeaway.
No, it's a big deal, and I think more and more our team, but every school is focusing on how do we help them, and we have a great group here with Career Services.
Yes.
But how do we help them do that next step?
Right.
Build that resume, articulate their story, have their elevator pitch.
Right.
What
And that's all resources we provide here.
Well, we're trying to,
Yeah.
and we're trying to boost some of those areas,
Right.
and those are the things that you talk about. What are the competitive advantages? We're all in recruiting,
Right.
and so we want to beat Xavier, and we want to beat Creighton, and we want to have the best kids come to our school. And they're all saying those things, we're saying those things, and we're all putting it in action. But that's, again, where I love about the Big East. We're basically all coming at it from the right, good place, in my opinion, right? In that students first. And so, I love that. And I think it puts us at an opportunity to be competitive and be the best we can be. And if you can win the Big East in any sport, then you have your ultimate dream to play for a national championship and be in the NCAA tournament, whatever sport. We're at that brink right now of men's soccer being an example that we just finished the Big East play. We'll be one of the top 16, top 20 teams in the country. We have been all year.
Right.
And every team starts 0-0. So we got the goal. We're now going to be in the NCAA tournament. You win 6 games, I think it's 5 in soccer, you're the national champions.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Right.
And every school at the beginning of the day is competing for that same dream. And so I'm excited for us to be able to have a program, in this case men's soccer, that's fulfilling their dreams and having a great experience.
And they've had some great attendance this season.
We've sold out 2 games. Students have been terrific coming.
Right.
You know, I think that's the part of athletics that can engage an entire university.
Right.
And most times that's articulated through football, basketball, men's basketball,
Right.
women's basketball. And so, and then pockets of areas where soccer or baseball or whatever, you know, and we have that here.
Right.
We have a great engagement rate for our students to be a part of. And I think that goes back to, they sit next to those same kids in class. And so they see their experiences in the classroom and say, hey, I'm gonna go root for Skaggy tonight. He's in my sociology class.
Right.
And that's what I love about college athletics. That's the purity of it.
And one of the changes you made here for students is free tickets for students at Carnesecca Arena
Yep,
for men's basketball.
Yep. Yeah, that was kind of a no-brainer to me. That's the way that I've been all my career at Duke. That, you know, students show their ID and swipe their card and they're in. And so we've had a much higher rate this year. First couple games were right around 500 a game of students. Last year we were around 200.
Wow.
Now we drew well in Madison Square Garden and we will again.
Right.
It's about 800 a game there. But here we've got available seats.
Yeah.
It makes the atmosphere better.
Right.
And so I think it'll just continue to grow. What we've got to do, really, our goal is to not only get them here, now we're getting them here, is they need to learn and be educated what it means to be a student at a game. You know, where you're, you know, maybe in the end zones, in the red zone, and you're standing and cheering the whole game, and you're doing the chants, and then we start getting that atmosphere and that advantage.
And it goes back to the phrase you used earlier, building that culture.
Yeah.
Build that winning culture.
That's right.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, and we have an iconic brand and history here, but a new coach, a new era, new style of play. You know, we feel there's a great opportunity.
Things are looking up.
Things are definitely trending up.